else? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we'll just start in the interest of time. And I will ask that in fact, at this point, everyone can the cameras are fine. And then we'll just start with the program. Hopefully we plan to do this in an hour and a half, and now we have an hour, 10 minutes. But really still hoping that we'll get through everything that we want to cover in this info session. Really want to welcome everyone who's joined us. Thank you for joining, and it's so great to see people take interest and want to find out how it is that they can better improve their applications and stand a better chance of getting through to this fellowship. So really this info session is with the hopes of doing that, helping you improve your application, but also just a glimpse into Teachers Can, what we do, what we're about. And if we'd started on time and technology hadn't given us all these glitches, what we would have loved to do is a check-in, because at Teachers Can, we have a culture of checking in. We would have checked in, done our favorite colors, or just any type of check-in. And really also for me, why I believe that the check-in is so important is that it's one way of just asking how you are. In South Africa, I think for most cultures in our country, when you greet people, you greet them and you ask, how are you doing? And a check-in is one of the ways in which we do that. It's also one of the ways in which we land ourselves in the room, in the space. So I won't ask us to put our mics on and to check in properly. But if you would be so kind as to just check in by telling us, how are you doing? In the comments, in the chat, on the Zoom call, tell us how are you doing and describe how you're doing with a color. And then everyone can just see that in the chat as we're going along. And yeah, so that will be our check-in for today. Tepi, so please can you also put it in the Zoom, in the chat, just so people see what the check-in question was. But yeah, so that will be our check-in, and then we'll move in from there. In my little time that I want to now squeeze.
Sama, I'm so sorry, I lost you there. Please repeat again. Sorry.
No worries. It was just asking people the check-in question, to describe their mood using a color.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and people can put that in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're able to put it in the chat, please just check in. Seeing some colors coming through. Yellow. I'm taking that sunshine right now. I need that brightness. I need that brightness. And yeah, so while we're checking in, I'll just give a little bit of an overview of Teachers Can, what we do. I actually won't share my presentation at this point, again, in the interest of time. Really, the guests that we have here today are the stars of the show. And I think anything that I have to say about Teachers Can is information that is easily accessible off our website for the most part, hopefully. And also the big hope is that our guests today, our panelists, will get into some of these questions that you might have that I might not cover. And really, I'm hoping not to cover them, because I know that they'll do a great job at covering them. But briefly about Teachers Can, I will just say, maybe I should have opened my presentation for this, because I don't want to ramble and speak out of. Okay, I'll just start sharing. And then when the presentation opens, we'll be good to go. But briefly about Teachers Can, who we are, what we do. We are a young teacher-led network, with particularly young teachers driving this network, leading this network. And some of the work in which okay, sorry guys, maybe I shouldn't multitask. I've got my presentation though, so that's exciting. So at Teachers Can, we are a teacher-led network for young transformative teachers who want to tap into their agency and to enable young children to reach their potential. So if you believe that you want to tap into your own agency, you want to transform children's lives, this is a network for you. We have a variety of ways in which we engage teachers who are transformative, who are change agents, and want to this positive impact in their classrooms. Our big vision at Teachers Can is for young teachers to be seen as vital role players in influencing the education system. And yeah, so sorry, I heard someone. Okay. And at Teachers Can, something that we believe in and that is really like almost our, I shouldn't use spiritual terms, but really our anchor and our guide is the Teachers Can manifesto, which you may have seen on our website. I will try to put it up here. Hopefully it is visible. We have a journal on it. So if you see this diagram, that is our Teachers Can manifesto. And that is really such a guiding principle for us, and a set of values that we believe, when embodied by teachers, it will really enable them to be these change agents that they are, that they believe and believe themselves to be, and help them in driving the change that they want to see in our country. And yes, and so some of the ways in which we do this, our pillars, are that we believe in connecting young teachers to each other, in elevating their roles, in amplifying their voices. Programmatically, one of the ways in which we then do that is through the Teachers Can Fellowship. Now, I plan to elaborate on why and the deadlines and all of that, but really, I think that that's information, like I've said, that's easily accessible off our website. Applications are open now and will close on the 15th of December. I will get into asking our participants some of these questions. And if anything is not covered there, then we'll get back into it. But to start us off, I really want to thank all the guests, the panelists. Gabelo, you're at top of my screen. Zay, Najma, Stanford, Juanito, and I think those are all the speakers. If you're a speaker, please, can I ask you to keep your camera on? And if you're a non-speaker, yes, it is fine for you to keep your camera off. So it'll just help us to see who's sharing at this point in time. And I think really for me, the first question that will, I think, give our audience and our people who are interested in applying, give them a great idea of what this fellowship is really centered around the fellowship journey. If you could tell us a little bit more, everyone in this room, in 3 minutes, if you could tell us what inspired you to apply for the fellowship, and what have been some of the benefits that you've witnessed and experienced by being a part of this fellowship, by being a part of this network. And if you tell people why they should participate, why should they participate? So those are the 2 questions that we've shared with you. So please, as you're sharing, I'll ask you to firstly say your name and then share, although I'm so grateful that your names are actually written. And then for you, Jay, we also, guys, in this info session, really cool. I mean, we have our lead facilitator in the room, and Jay has like designed this fellowship and been with it, I want to say, from day 1. And Anisiwa has been here at day 0. We also have our project lead in the room. So Anisiwa was here at day 0, and then Jay was at day 1. But if there's a day 0 and a day 1, we have a day 1 in the room who's really at the forefront, but also in the back, really like designing and thinking through this process so intently. And Jay, for you, this question around your journey, can you really sort of center it on also what has been the thought process that you've put into holding space for young teachers in your journey? But we'll end off with you, Jay, and just what I see on the screen, I see Gabelo, Zay, Najma, and Stanford. If we can just share in that order your journey, the benefits, why participate, what inspired you to apply. Gabelo, you can take it away.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much, Zama, for putting me on the spotlight. I never thought I'd be the first one, but thank you for the opportunity. Right. So what inspired me, before I even go into what inspired me, I think you said I must reiterate, my name is Gabelo Sekhapo. I am an educator based in Mahikeng, that is the capital city of the Northwest Province. So that's who I am, just a simple guy who's a go-getter. Right, so what inspired me to want to be part of such a space and to even want to be part of the fellowship program, I have centered my response to this question in 3 points. Number one, the urge to find a new space. I think as an educator, especially as a young educator, there comes a time, maybe during your second year, if not third year, fourth year of teaching, there comes a time where you really want to reflect about this profession that you've chosen, this profession that you still continue to choose. Why am I in it? So that fire, that burning desire to want to be in a space where I'm able to take so that I can fill my cup, but also be in a space where I'm able to also give to others. That's the first thing that inspired me to want to apply in spaces such as Teachers Can and the fellowship program they offer. Secondly, the hunger or the thirst to grow. I'm a person who always wants to grow in my daily life, in everything I touch, in every space I occupy, in every platform that I'm given to. I just want to grow. And if my desire, my vision is to want to grow, I always thought to myself, spaces such as Teachers Can will give me that opportunity to grow, but an opportunity to also learn from others in the same way, an opportunity to also teach. And lastly, I wanted to expand my social network. I think even during our immersions, if I were to just give a reflection of my immersion this year as a 2023 fellow, it's important that as in when we participate or as in when we perform our duties as educators, we see the importance of growing our social network. Why social network? Because this network allows you to build relationships with other people who are doing great in different spaces, in different contexts, but as teachers. So yes, this space will also allow you to fill up your energy as a young, vibrant educator who wants to make a change in the South African education system. And thank you so much. That's what inspired me to become a part of this program.
Kabelo, my orator. This is our orator, guys. Everyone actually knows. Thank you so much for sharing, Kabelo. I love, love, love how you've shared. And so inspiring. I mean, who doesn't want to join after what you've shared?
Okay.
And really that fire, that network, that growth, those are the words that stand out for me. And I'm interested to hear in Zay. Please, I love what you've done, Kabelo. Please then also, as you just a young introduction, on who you are, perhaps where you're placed in the country, because I think that's also quite important and shows that representation, as well as perhaps the year in which you joined this fellowship. We try to be very diverse, even in the panelists that we brought onto this conversation. Zay, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am Zay, and I'm a grade 7 and 8 English teacher in the city of Bloemfontein, so the Free State province. And yeah, I joined the fellowship in 2023, and what a powerful and profound experience it was. The reason why I joined this fellowship, what inspired me to join the fellowship, is just to meet people. I became very complacent in the career that I am in, and I'm sure some of you could maybe attest to that, because when you are a teacher, you end up doing the same thing every day. You go to class, you give the lesson. Yes, obviously it's our passion, but it becomes very routine-like. Then we go over to development training. And the development training rarely ever spoke to the individual. They only focus on what you teach and not who is doing the teaching. So I was looking for ways to develop myself and not only develop my pedagogical knowledge or curriculum development. And I also wanted to meet new people from different places around the country that spoke the same language, because I think teachers have a very specific DNA around them. And I think we all think we are so alone, but yet we're not. We all actually share the same challenges. We share in so many common aspects, no matter if you're in a quintile 1 school or a quintile 5 school. Same, but different, you know. And I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power. So the more people you meet, the more you get to experience, the more you get to learn about other people, the more you actually get to learn about this diverse culture that we are in. You become very comfortable in the space that you are in, and then you think that's the only way, but then it's really not the only way. And only once I started speaking to teachers from different provinces, different cultures, different quintiles, and really connected and engaged with them, then only I realized, but wow, I thought I knew, but I have no idea, and I've got so much more to learn. So I think just never ever thinking, that you made it. Never ever thinking that you're not going to be this lifelong learner, because that's exactly what we are. But because we are in such a routine, we think that that's it, and there's no place further. And teachers can just reignites that. It just elevates your role as a teacher, the narrative. Sometimes it can change the narrative. So to be in a room with like and unlike-minded people is truly inspiring, because I think that we only really get to learn through speaking and engaging with people from different spheres of life. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Zay. And I think that's been such, even for me as someone who's not necessarily a fellow, I call myself a fellow light, but it's been so, I think, great to learn from teachers from the entire country, from different walks of life, and really understanding and perceiving things from where they are, understanding their contexts. And there's just such power in that knowledge sharing, in that exchange, in that networking. And for the most part, that's also why we try to bring teachers from around this country, from different parts, just because in that exchange, you get to learn so much. Something that you're struggling with now, someone else has already conquered, but something that you're doing really great and you've seen it play out well, you can impart it on a different teacher in a different part of this country. And I think that's been so valuable to witness that exchange happening.
And just one last thing, Zama. The other thing is also really connecting with everyone. I think you gain a sense of empathy. You gain a sense of empathy with colleagues that may be difficult. You might understand, okay, you need to take it from who it comes. You also get to understand why certain learners act the way they do, because now you have a whole social context, because you've been exposed to people who actually come from different contexts and not only where you are from. So yeah, it's really powerful.
Lots to say. Thank you, Zay. And empathy is a big value of ours here, Teachers Can. Thank you for sharing. Najma, I will hand over to you to
Hi
introduce
everyone.
yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Najma. I am a 2022 fellow all the way from Cape Town, Western Cape. What inspired me was actually 2 years ago when I was actually on an info session. And that was the first time I heard about Teachers Can. And the energy that from the room or the space that we were in kind of captivated me. And I said, I need to be a part of this. Whatever it is, I need to be a part of it. Because it didn't just speak to the education system, but it spoke to me as a teacher. And more often than not, it's more about the learners and how we improve the learners. But it's not much about how we as teachers, what we need and what we need to be able to assist those learners. And that has been the biggest benefit for me, being a Teachers Can fellow. I was seen, and in being able to be seen, I could then see my learners for who they were, because I was now seen as a human being first before my role as a teacher. And whenever I step into the classroom now, it's a matter of these are human beings and then they are a learner. And whatever it is that we do, at the core of it, we are still all people. And that has been the biggest thing for me. And also the fact that in our very first immersion, the benefit for me was I got to identify with myself a bit. I had to see who my identity was outside of my role as a teacher. And that has been the greatest benefit for me in growing personally as well as professionally as well. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Najma. I was trying to unmute there. Najma, as you were sharing, something that for me sparked is that focus on the teacher and focus on the person as well. And that's something that we really try to do at Teachers Can, focusing on, because so much of what the teacher is is expected to do is focus on the learner. But before you are there by the learners, you must be here for yourself. And it is the teacher who then must impart all this knowledge, quality learning for these learners. So how it, and I find oftentimes that then the focus is hardly on the teachers. So I've really appreciated that this space has done that. And I think Jay, as she shares, will also get into a little bit of that. But I'm loving that focus on teachers was something that came across and that you felt it and that it has impacted you. Stanford, I will hand over to you to also share. Stanford is an OJ fellow, but no bragging rights, Stanford. You can't do that.
I will not brag, Zama, but you said you are a light fellow, so I must also say I am the grand fellow. So, sure, these guys were sounding, you're sounding like those people on TV with a script and it's in front of you, but the audience can't see where you're reading. And I'm sitting here, where am I going to get mine? So Zama will divert a little bit, maybe not say what inspired me. I will share that later. But I also want to say I was influenced also to apply. I'm one of those crazy people, and I like the fact that Kabelo said a go-getter, and I was known like that at UP. So my name is Stan, indeed. I'm Stanford Ndrobo. I'm a teacher coach at Jake's. I don't know who's timing me because I speak very slow and I want to say a lot in 3 minutes. I'm a teacher coach at Jake's Fellowship. I was a grade 5 teacher in Pretoria. So I joined in 2021, which applied for the teachers camp because I was influenced by Jay, who was then my program officer at UP. There's this thing where you feel safe when you are joining an organization where there are people and they're great. So I applied and I'll just share my journey. I was inspired by a lot of things. Nashma has mentioned that for the first time in the country, we had an organization that cared about teachers. And of course, the identity was at the center of it. And I'm like, I'm going to be crazy enough to apply. And then I met like-minded people and not so like-minded people. But what inspired me is the change because I just needed an organization that can tap into my change agent identity because like Andisi always say, a teacher cannot be a social worker and all these things without anyone holding space as the space for them. I think the change agent teacher was always in me, but then there wasn't a safe space where I could fully immerse myself, not just a chalk and a chalkboard pen, a person, but I could show more and give more and build this community. So I, for the first time, got a place where I could have a sense of belonging, not just a grade 5 teacher, but as Stanford, and understanding that there is a place for me to contribute, co-create, and learn from young people. And what was nice and still nice about it is the fact that it is intentionally for young people, regardless of their context, because most of fellowships can tend to be in a specific way that I don't like. But this one was particularly designed for young people and holding space regardless of where you are in the country. Luckily, I was one of the first cohort and we had amazing time. I timed myself, so I'll stop here.
It's amazing to hear, Stanford. I think for me, I'm just like, it's amazing to hear how some of these ideals that we sit in at the back and hoping that they'll come across, that actually they have come across and you have felt like you can belong. And you have, both you and Zay mentioned this, like being with like-minded and being with not so unlike-minded people, because that's the reality of the world that we live in. Not everyone will see things the way you do. Jay, take us then through your journey as well, having had been here since COVID, but also then a little bit also on the thought behind holding space for these young teachers that are part of this fellowship.
So Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Teachers Can space. So as Zama mentioned, my name is Joanito or Jay, and I am the lead facilitator and designer for the Teachers Can Fellowship. So the reason why I joined the team it was 2020 when we joined the team, Zama, was because I was interested in seeing what could happen if we designed an organization and a program that focuses on placing value on teachers. I believe in the value of teachers and the value of the teaching profession, because I can tell you just how a teacher literally changed the trajectory of my life. And one of the things that I really struggled with and didn't understand is why more people were not understanding that's the value and the power of this profession, and why are we not investing in it more. And particularly, why are we not focusing on getting the type of young people that you just heard into this profession, who are passionate, who are driven to see change, and who are willing to put in the work personally and professionally so that they can make that impact. And so really that is what attracted me to this work in the first place. And the way that the program is designed is to make all of the things that our fellows just spoke about come alive in a structured way, and in a way where you can sort of see the journey from the beginning until the end, and then also just see and feel empowered to continue on that journey outside of the fellowship space. So I'll speak a little bit more about how the fellowship is structured, if that's okay, Zama.
Definitely, Jay. That covers what I would have covered in the overview, and I think it fits in with your.
Sure. So the program is built for people who see themselves firstly as change agents. So it's very important that everybody knows, who wants to apply, that we are not creating change agents. We are inviting people who already see themselves as change agents into the space. And we are saying, here's an opportunity for you to further develop that identity and to be part of a group of and a community of a network of people who share that identity and who are committed to growing and making impact with that identity. So that's the first thing. So the way the program is designed is in 3 different immersions that happen throughout the year. And they happen during the school holidays in March, April, and then July, and then September. The first immersion, and the theme for that immersion is about identity. And you've heard everybody speak about the value of really understanding, who am I before I am a teacher? And how does that influence the way I show up as a teacher? So we focus a lot on trying to develop that understanding, that self-awareness, and that emotional intelligence. And also that deep value and appreciation first for you as an individual. Because we believe if you create that value for yourself and you see that for yourself, it is automatic that that's what how you will treat the learners in your class. You will treat them as individuals. You will value their individuality. You will value their humanity at the end of the day. And so we focus a lot on that, and we look at the intersection between the person and in their individual identity and their teacher identity, and how those two can merge so that they can show up in the classroom as the best possible teacher, and also so that they feel capacitated and they feel like they've got language that they can build around who they are, and that strengthens the identity at the end of the day. So that's what we focus on in the first immersion. We do a lot, like we spend a lot of time in storytelling. We spend a lot of time challenging our assumptions and our ideas about how things are, how we show up, how we respond to other people. So there's a lot of work that goes into that first immersion to really build that foundation. Then the other thing that we fundamentally believe as an organization is you cannot do any of this on your own. So a big focus for us is helping teachers understand that fact of life. And I know probably everybody in this room is someone that tends to, the teachers that we tend to attract are people who do a lot of things at the same time. Outside of, you know, teaching in a classroom, I am part of this committee, I am, involved in this thing, and I'm part of this community and initiative, etc., etc. And so, and we want you to continue doing those things, but we do not want you to do it in a way that harms you and your well-being. And the way in which to do that is to make sure that you are part of community. So our second immersion is really about how do you build a generative community around yourself. And the word generative is really important because we know that there's a lot of negativity that people are often exposed to, from, the community in which you teach to the classroom, sometimes the schoolyard, and your personnel rooms. And so really this space is very intentional about being generative, being positive, and really bringing home the message about the importance of being part of a community at the end of the day, and finding power not just in your individual identity, but also in your collective identity as a profession. So that's what we focus on for the second immersion. The final immersion is really about two things, mainly about vision. So how do you build and articulate your personal vision as a teacher? And how do you make that come alive? And then how do you build the type of influence so that you can achieve that vision? And remember, you're doing that, yes, as an individual, but also tapping into that network and collective identity and collective strength as a profession. So again, we do lots of different things that bring home that message in terms of the program. And it's really just the most amazing collaboration between the people in the room, the 25 teachers that join us every year, and the facilitator in front. And it's a wonderful flow of information, of knowledge, of experience, and just a commitment to learning and being a generative space for each other. So that's in a nutshell the fellowship.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jay, and have really covered it. I saw some fellows nodding and smiling as you're going along, just because those themes are so powerful. Building change agent identity, building generative community, building the vision, and building the path influence. And really, those have been themes that I think have been powerful in that they do allow, as you were saying, Jay, for collaboration, for teacher voices to really speak to what is change agent identity. I think our definition as teachers can be organization is really on the basis of what now teachers have defined as a change agent identity, have showed us and have embodied in their practice. So thank you for sharing, Jay. I think, again, if you join now, we had some technical issues earlier, and we meant to cover this in a presentation, but Jay hit on the nail, and I feel we're covered now. If you have any more questions, really please put them in the chat. And I advise you to also go onto our website. We have a FAQ page there, but we also really cover the fellowship in extensive detail in terms of what it entails, when it happens during public school holidays, as Jay has mentioned. So please go there. But now, if you're here, please ask your questions. We really want to optimize on this time while we do have fellows in the room, while we have Jay in the room to answer some of these questions. But I will then get into the exciting part for me and really what I was driving for this info session. And it's around applications. So a big thing that happens, sorry, I'm also trying to admit people. A big thing that happens is that people apply, right? As we were covering in this journey and what inspired you to apply. But sometimes then in applications, I've witnessed as someone perhaps who's part of the reviewing team or the interviewing team, is that you know some of these teachers, but you, in the application, and that's why I'll share a bit of background, but in the application, I find sometimes that they really don't showcase who they are, what they do, haven't brought, because I mean, we're reading this, okay, I'll get on a screen, but we're not meeting you, especially in that first round of applications where it's just the paper and I'm reading who this person is. And for me, a big passion of mine is seeing people really shine through even at that stage. Introduce yourself. Let us, as we're reading your application, let us say as a reviewing team, I want to meet this teacher. Who is this person? And sometimes I think generally, I struggle with this myself when I apply for certain opportunities or for fellowships, is how do I bring that across? And I hope that our panelists will help us get into a bit of that. And really then this question, I'm going to ask two panelists and Jay. The hope is that we'll probably have the two other panelists coming in. But really, in the interest of time, Zay and Kabelo, I will ask you to help us, particularly the participants in the room that are looking to apply, is then who is a competitive candidate? And how can I shine through and make sure that the review team wants to meet me? What is it that I can put in my application as I answer those questions that will help my application stand out?
Are you going first, Kabelo? Should I go? Okay, so I think a candidate who has a competitive advantage would definitely be someone who's authentic, firstly. Please don't type your application out using artificial intelligence. Just be exactly who you are. Be authentic. It's better to be, a first-rate version of yourself than a second-rate version of someone else. And I think the language that you use in your application, speak. Use all the characters up that you've got on that Google form, or I'm not sure how they're doing applications this year. But that's the one place where you can humbly brag about yourself and who you see yourself to be in this profession. So I think be authentic, speak about your vision, whatever it may be. Tell your vision, because it's that vision. I think teachers can, and the facilitators and the interviewers, I think they really can see someone with vision. They can feel the passion and the energy that you bring out when you speak about that vision, in terms of the educational space and being a change agent. And I think just being passionate and state the role that you play. Don't be shy. Brag about yourself in the application, and I promise they'll definitely feel your energy come through.
I love that. Please brag.
Yeah.
Oh, please brag. My big thing
Yeah.
is just like brag. It's your
Yeah.
one opportunity where we won't judge you in society for bragging and for showcasing and telling us some of the things that you've done. Because how else then are we going to know if you don't showcase? It's really such a great opportunity to showcase. Kabelo, I see you nodding already. Let me not cloud the
Yeah.
mic.
Yeah, no, thank you, Zama. I think Zay put it beautifully. It's beautifully put by Zay. But in addition to what Zay has said, guys, I'm going to speak to potential applicants or those who want to be part of Teachers Can, especially for the 2024 fellowship. Number one, when you complete that form, take it as a CV. When you complete a CV to apply for that particular post you so want, you have to make sure that this paper called a CV is going to speak on your behalf, even when you're not there yourself. So in completing that application online, Make sure that you take ownership of all the spaces and the words that are given to you in order to sell to the people, to the teachers' care as an organization. Why should you consider me as not only a change agent, but as one of the best well-driven change agents? In completing that particular application form, like Zay said, be very authentic, be yourself. There's a phrase we used to say, I think it started from our second immersion this year. Second immersion, it's also continued to our third immersion. Understand the context you're operating in. And exactly in that very corner you are in, be bright in that particular corner. You are already a teacher who's doing brilliant stuff. When you look at this application for a Teacher Scan Fellowship 2024, look at this application as a space for you to share with the world what you do. Because I can assure you, whether you are going to make it to the 2024 program or not, but at least you will have more than 2 people reading your application, so they will know about you. So as and when you complete that application, you must know that I am not only completing it as a person who chose to be a teacher, but I complete it as a person who still chooses today to be a teacher. Because we always say teaching is something you choose. Even on your worst day, you still choose, I'm going to be a teacher. Even when you have so much to be done or work that needs to be done, whether it's marking, it's preparing for class, but you say to yourself, I am a teacher and I'm going to be a teacher that's not only going to be a classroom teacher, but a teacher that's going to influence the decision-making processes in the education sector. And lastly, for you to influence a space such as the education fraternity, you can't influence it being on the outside. You've got to be inside. Already you being a teacher, it's good enough. You are already playing a space of influencing the direction of the teacher you want and also the direction the system should take. Now that you are within, when you apply for spaces such as Teacher Scan Fellowship Program, you are saying, I want to be part of the voices that are going to be amplified so that our voices are heard and we take up the space. Because this education system should not be something that's prepared by somebody outside. It should be something that's prepared to respond to us and to respond to our needs by us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Kabelo. Nothing for us without us, and really that is the space. We need teachers' voices amplified. Kabelo, you said something about like being the best and you want to showcase that you are the best. Just to even bring a bit of stats in, we had 137 applications this year, so just under 140, and interviewed around, well, accepted in the shortlisting, 75, and can only take a third of that into the fellowship, right? We can only take 25. So you're meeting with about 70 teachers that you're interviewing, or that you've now even read the applications and you already think they're great, but there's only room for 25. And how is it that you're showcasing that you are the best, that you are bright in your corner, and also that you're on the spectrum? I love that you guys have put across the authenticity. We're not saying have all this list where you being this and that and the other, but showcase how are you bringing change in your own sphere of influence, in your own way of doing it. There's no one particular way of being a change agent, but if you can show us that you are a change agent where you are, I think it really, really sets you apart and then can help you be a part of this 25. Jay, master reviewer, how can people shine in that first round, and really the biggest round that they have, the biggest shot they have at this in applications?
Sure. I mean, I think Kabelo and Zayas covered a lot. I would just say that there is something to be said about preparation. So really giving yourself enough time to really put your best foot forward in this application. And in order to do that, you do not want to be starting your application on the 15th of December. So really give yourself a sufficient amount of time to gather your thoughts, and to make sure that you have tapped into all of the parts that make up who you are, so that you can pour all of that into your application, and you need time for that. The other piece of advice that I would give is, often there are things that we don't see in ourselves, because our tendency as humans is just like, we tend to see like, you know, what's not great first before we see what is good. So ask other people. Other people might tell you things that you would not have noticed on your own about you that is good and that you want to put in that application. So really tap into your trusted circle and ask people for their input and for their advice. And once you've completed your application form, share it with someone that you trust, so that they also can read through it, and they can also like give you some input before you submit your final application. So that's really important. So making sure you give yourself enough time, and then also making sure you have an outside view and voice into that application as well, because that means it's really valuable in terms of just giving yourself, just giving a broader perspective of who you are and how you show up in the world. The other thing that I would also say in reading applications is tell a story. So really, from answering the first question to the last question, there's a very nice sequence in how the questions are laid out. So make sure that you are telling a story through your application that is interesting and engaging for someone to read who has never met you. So the only thing we are seeing is your name and what you put down on that paper. So make sure that you're telling a really, really good story through the way that you answer those questions. I think it was Zay that said it, to use all the characters. One of the things that is, you know, not that great when you are reading through an application is when you've got like, you know, this much space and then you given to you, but then you only use this. And so it really is like, so, you know, what happened there? Like, did you not give yourself enough time? There's so many things that could, you know, people could conclude from like you just not using the space available to you. So that's really important as well. And the last thing I will say is that what you want to shine through in your application is not just what it is that you are going to get from the fellowship, but also what are you going to give. So this is a collective of 25 people who come from all over the country, and everybody has got something that they are looking for. But you all have something that you can give as well that will build that space, build that community, and that's also really important. So answering the questions in that way so that shines through as well, because that's often what we ask. If it's like between two like really, really great applications, and it's like, what do we think this person will give into the space versus what the other person will give into the space? So that's a really, really important component of the way that you answer those questions. Yeah, I think I'll stop there, Zama. I'm also wondering if there's some opportunity for people to ask more direct questions as well.
Yeah, there is a bit of time actually. We'll try spare time. Gabelo, I see your hand is up. And I don't know if it is up because you had something else to say on this.
Yes, if there's time. If there's no time, it's okay.
Okay, Gabelo, how about we maybe then open up questions from our audience, see if there are any
Perfect.
questions that come up, and perhaps then you can cover it then as well.
Okay, that's still okay. Thank you so much.
Through the chat. If you are comfortable in unmuting yourself, because I see there are no questions yet in the chat. If I've missed your question, please also just maybe unmute and ask. If something has sparked at this point, please also then feel free to ask and unmute yourselves. I'm not seeing any unmutes. So we will go ahead with some of the questions that we have for our panelists. But also we do have some time spared for Q&A at the end, and we are nearly there. So to Stanford and Najma, I suppose this question for you guys as well is because your guys' application period was, a couple of years, well, at least 2 years ago. But really then it is that interviewing stage, because you've now been accepted into the first round. You get the exciting email in January that, hey, we've read your applications, you are accepted into an interview, and you've gotten, because you aren't accepted into the program at that stage, but we'd love to meet you at interviews. We'd love to see and hear from you. Now that we're hearing from you as the team, what is it that then I should aim to bring across at that stage that perhaps is slightly different in a sense, but I think very connected to what Zay and Kabelo have already shared? Yeah, so how do I then present myself, bring my best self forward in this interview stage, given that it's only like 20 minutes that I have? So really would love for you, Najma and Stanford and Jay, to answer those questions. And I also want to highlight that Stanford, you've now at this stage, because we also then bring in our alumni to sit in at interviews with us. You've now also been in both, on both sides, right, Stanford? You've sat in as someone who's being interviewed, but also now you've sat in as an interviewer. And that's why I thought it would be so great for you to answer this question. What have been some of those things that you felt people should bring across? Maybe Stanford, you can start, and then Najma, you can share after Stan.
Thanks, Zama, for those questions. So I think Kabelo and Zain.
Zay, yes. We need an alumni. We need an alumni gathering.
We need another one. I missed the other one because of work. So what is evident during the interview is how authentic you've been in the words that you've used in your application. Because so the first thing I will start off, when I was interviewed, I wanted to show, because I'm not good in expressing myself, writing down essays, I wanted to show the panel that whatever I wrote there is true, and also but to show over and above the 250 limitations of a foreign language, and say, this, now you have me. Because I always say this, if you want to get rid of me in anything, don't get me into an interview room, because if you do that, I'm in. Because I'm just going to show, whether you say 30 minutes, whatever, you adjust the time later. It's just showing up and your true self, be authentic, and really prove, like Jay was saying, use your stories to tell whatever you've been up to before you got into this point, because we're not building change agents. You're already in the making, but we want to see you showing us what you've been up to. If you say you are a change agent, what have you done in your community? What have you done in your school? What have you done to bring together the other people that are singing the same song? So in the interview, I think that's where you show up and you show off. So that was my idea, to say, when I get into that seat, I want everyone to remember what I said, because I believe that my story is unique and there's evidence to back it up. And then what I saw during the interview phases of interviewing other people is the link and sometimes the mismatch between what they said on the application and what they now showing up with, because sometimes people are good with words. That's why I want to go back to authenticity, because oftentimes it will show that you actually not what you presented yourself to be. Because I mean, fancy words, innovative, collaborative, we want that, we're hearing that, but where have you been to show your innovation? Where and when was the place where you show collaboration? Was it in the staff room? Was it in the community? Was it at the university before you even became a teacher? So I think it all comes down to own your story. And don't, the other thing is, you asked me to share the good things, but also don't try to oversell things you haven't done, or put a little bit of salt into your story because you can taste it, it's too much. So that's what I would do. Show your story, show the evidence of the things that you said you did in your application, and link it to what you are applying to do. Because I think for the most part right now in the fellowship, what is also important is, what are you bringing? Because we are trying to get into the whole of South Africa. So what we're giving you, we know, and we know how much you want it. But if you are in Mpumalanga, what makes you stand out from the other 75 people in Mpumalanga who wants to be in the fellowship? And you stand up by being authentic, and also by saying, if I get this opportunity, this is how I will use it, and this is how I can connect the ecosystem of the education. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to be apologetic about your story if it's too big, because you could be sitting here and your story is bigger than any of us who've been in the fellowship. And we've seen that some of the cohorts that came after us going to America and those things, and some of these people have done amazing things. Show that to us, and show how you can link it to the broader community. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stan. That linkage is so important, because really the paper is to speak to the person that we meet. And I love that it's a two-part process, really, because if you haven't maybe gotten the opportunity to like hit the nail with the paper-based, if at least you get into the room, that's another opportunity for you to prove and to show and tell, to not just tell, but demonstrate it in some of the examples, really bringing across those examples. What have you done? And it's fine, perhaps, if you brought in, and as you were saying, innovative, and I was thinking ChatGPT, you know, and all these things, and how they can like really decorate our language. And that's, you know what, I really do not encourage it, because we want the authenticity. But if we've used those big words, and perhaps those aren't words you use in your everyday life, that's okay if you're in the interview, but also still demonstrate and show. Maybe you aren't going to say I've innovated, maybe you're going to say I changed something, and we'll get it. But how do you show and tell, and story tell? Najma, advice from I actually was in both your interviews and remember them, so really interested to hear the advice you're sharing.
I think Stanford stole the script that I was supposed to use, because but what I had and what I felt was, you just need to be yourself. For me, it was it's finally an opportunity for me to get my voice heard, for me to be able to show who I am as a teacher and what it is that I do. And again, to reiterate the fact that which everyone has said, is the fact that what is it that you have to offer? And more often than not, we choose to see, what can I get from this? What can I gain from this? But more importantly, it needs to be about what you have to offer. What can you give? Because a sense of community is where everyone is giving and taking at the same time. And what Kabelo said earlier on, it's a space where you can fill your cup, but it's also a space where you can fill someone else's cup. And in your interview, you need to be able to show us that that is what you can do, because we hold space for one another, and we need to know that you can do the same. Yeah, it's all about just being yourself, making your voice heard, and it's basically like putting action to what your application was. It's your testimony, your actual testimony to what you have written down. And like Stan said, no GPT, so then we can actually see that you didn't use GPT, and you can be your authentic self once again.
Thank you for sharing, Najma. And what I love that you're bringing across now, that has come through in this conversation, is that what do you also have to offer in the space? We just as much as you're going to take and receive, but it's also about your generosity and sharing, and that's what demonstrates that. And like Stanford was saying, that's what sets you apart. If this person comes into the room, they'll also give. If this person comes, we're not too sure, they'll pour into the space and share who they are and what they are about, and actually even take that back into their own communities, because that's also the hope, right? These emerging leaders are also leaders in their communities, and what will they take back into their communities and not just keep for themselves? Okay, I will ask again and encourage our audience to please, if there are any questions that are emerging, please put them in the chat. But in the last 10 minutes, what I want to do is, because we actually haven't had any questions coming through right now at this point, is to maybe then ask, granted it's all roses, we've heard the great things that are shared and that I can get and gain by being a part of this fellowship, but also perhaps what are some of the challenges, right? And what are some of the lessons? Because hearing the challenges, as I'm thinking about applying, then I can anticipate it. If I have to, in September, it's only 1 week of school holidays, and perhaps that may pose challenges, timing that it happens, different types of challenges, being confronted by unlike-minded people, that can be challenging. But what have been some of the challenges that you guys as fellows have experienced in your fellowship here, but also perhaps as an alumni, as you may be trying to live this thing out now that you're done with the fellowship? What have been some challenges that you've experienced, but also what are some lessons that you can share? So maybe you don't want to share on your challenges, maybe it's not the space for you to do that, but also please share some lessons and what you've gotten from also the challenging parts of this journey. And any of you, I am done now picking fingers. Najma, go ahead.
I want to share on the challenges because I was studying full-time last year as well as teaching full-time, and it can be quite hectic. And initially I was like, oh, am I going to give up my holiday? Because it's basically the only free time that I had. But the challenge turned into an opportunity for me because I learned so much and I gained so much support from everyone that it didn't become like a chore or another duty that I was doing. So my challenge was studying full-time and working full-time, but being part of the fellowship actually assisted me in coping. It became my source of motivation. And again, that thing of filling up my cup. It was a space where I could be, and you gain from the space. And you don't just gain information, you gain family, you gain community, you gain resources. And that really brought me through my most challenging of teaching full-time as well as studying full-time last year.
Thank you for sharing, Najma. Any other challenges and lessons?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wanna go, Zay, or Stanford is also wanna
You
go?
may go,
Okay.
you may go, Fabiola, you may go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think one of the challenges, which I think are not so much of a big challenge, but was having to make a decision to attend the immersion as opposed to be attending camps or as opposed to be resting for those holidays, especially those teachers who are teaching at grade 12, who most of the time be expected to be teaching at the camps during March holidays, June holidays, and September holidays. But I then quickly understood that it's necessary for me to fill in my cup now. The camp will always be there next year. The camp will always be there 2025, but this immersion might not be there for me as this opportunity, as opposed to the camps that would be. So I think it's important that in the process of choosing whether to be in the immersion, to attend the immersion or not, you also reflect about the importance of you growing and filling up your own cup, because that is also necessary in as much as it may remain a challenge, but it's an interesting challenge because it challenges you to know what is it must I put as a priority as an individual. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kabelo. And I love that you put across that word growth, because that's also the hope in these challenges, that actually you grow through them and you also choose on the basis of what will give me the opportunity to grow. And I think critically, Kabelo has highlighted something that I really want to stress, even for someone who's thinking about applying for this fellowship, that the immersions are the only time, the contact time that you get to really then be immersed and be a part and learn from and get to learn from this experience. So immersions are compulsory. Even as you are signed up and are accepted into the program, you have to actually then sign and say, I will attend all these immersions. So just like that decision making must happen for you right at the start, because you're either in or you're out. Choosing to be in and then not showing up, you've actually closed that opportunity for someone else who might have taken it on and used it in very meaningful ways. So I love that there's going to be a bit of sacrifice that comes in, but it was insightful to hear your thought process, Kabelo. I think I'll share I'll share it around as I hear more teachers battle with that decision making. Zay Stanford, and then Buddha ST. I see you have your hand up. We'll just take your questions after they've shared.
Okay, may I go, Stanford? Okay, I think a big challenge, I had two big challenges, and that is that I'm a mom of two boys, a 7-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So leaving my children behind during a time that I should sort of be spending time with them, having a holiday with them, that was quite challenging for me. And also just thinking, oh my word, now someone else, my husband, has to take care of the kids, which he does so well. But, you know, as a mom, you always think that you are the capable one, you are the primary caregiver. And I just needed to let go of that feeling that I am the only capable one, and leaving that capability to someone else and trusting other people as well with my children. And it sounds crazy, but I mean, through the fellowship, each time I came back home, it was almost as if they've become more independent. Each time I came back from the fellowship, I felt even energized to deal with my own children at home, because now I've taken some concepts, not only for teaching, not only for the classroom, but also who I am then as a mom, as a wife, as a human being, as a friend, just as a peer in society. And I really came back and I had a conversation with my husband after the first immersion, and I said to him, I remember this clearly, I said to him, I'm going to stop shouting so much. And you just do what you need to do. So I think that was a big thing for me. And then the second thing was, when you are in the room and the space you are in, you almost feel overwhelmed with this urgency to share. And you'll see that when the right people are in the room, you just want to share. You just want to give answers. So the thing for me, I had to withhold a little bit to say, okay, I also need to become a listener. In the classroom, we are the talker. We are seen to be the giver of knowledge, but we also need to listen to be able to learn and take in. So I think that's how I overcame that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Jay, I think you'll be impressed just hearing that some of those deep listening exercises have found roots in really how people show up. And also that people went back home and said, I'm going to do less of that. And really, you're the person first before you're the teacher. So that's coming through from what you're sharing, Zay. Thank you. Stanford, challenges and lessons.
Thanks, I'm glad Jay is here. Active listening. People still find it weird when I tell them, say, you listen, no nodding, nothing, just listen. That's all you have to do. Look, so some have been mentioned, the people who are watching on the other side. So I was curious that maybe Zama, you'd ask who of the people here have applied, because there's a lot of things you need to consider. Your lifestyle, is it how does it link to the things that you want to do? And I think the people that are applying from now on have some basis of people that have been in the fellowship to ask, and the videos that we have on the social media to understand what is going on. So as far as considering your family, your professional development, and how you are willing to pick your poison and the trade-offs thereof. I hope she's not here. One of my friends, she will know I'm talking about her, had to choose between staying at home. I know she won't, it's not too deep. Then I said to her, please go, because it will change your life. And when you tell your children, I had to do this for the betterment of me and yours as well, because I can tell you, and those who are not in the fellowship, all the people on the screen here, after the fellowship, they went home. And those who are not on the screen now, they went home and did something great. Out of the 3 cohorts that we've had, I can tell you about half of us have done something, have moved in their career, have done something amazing through the influence that we give to each other. And I know there are people on the other side who want to apply, who already have the energy. I am telling you, it's worth it. One thing is always show up. Once you are accepted into the fellowship, those 3 immersions, if your uptake is really positive, you realize that actually 3 is not enough, because you will then see the things that you're good at, and you will then at the same time see the things that you need to improve, because the school is a difficult place to be at sometimes, where you work with people and your strengths are clashing with the other people, but through the training that you receive, you get to understand that maybe I was wrong, my approach is not the right one. And then as you go back every time, like we always talk about the overflowing cup, you are then able to pour into others, but then the first point of departure is yourself. So from my side, there weren't really challenges, because it happened at the time where I felt that I needed development as a teacher, but also personally to be able to show up for the kids and for the people that I work with professionally and able to take my stick forward. If you have that growth mentality, and one thing for sure is that I don't believe that there's a leader who's done something great without a great sacrifice. So it cannot be that you want to enjoy holidays, but at the same time you want to be a great teacher. Something must be sacrificed there. Just need to have a deeper look into saying, where am I? And as you are in the fellowship, the like-minded and the unlike-minded that we are talking about, when you show up in the room, you need to understand of the people's feelings, thinking, and respect that, because oftentimes people in leadership would want to show up as my view, and when we're dealing with teachers, that's not how it is. We are respectful, and there you are facing a whole lot of different people. So open your mind, learn, unlearn, and relearn certain things. One thing I always promise: when you leave your Teachers Can fellowship at the end of the year, you will be someone different. We have never had a case someone said, "Oh, I just wasted my time." Every one of us, when they left, they did something in their community. The magnitude will be different, but one thing for sure, I promise you. And as the years goes by, you're like, "Oh, I missed out. I missed out on that opportunity if you didn't apply." And if you applied the first time, apply again and again and again until you go in.
Thank you for sharing, Stanford. And I'm latching on to that last part. If you haven't applied, apply. If you've applied and perhaps didn't go through, apply and apply again, especially if you're still eligible. One that demonstrates that you're perhaps still young, but really, I think there's always a better chance in making it through. And it will always be timely and relevant. So I see that we had a question from Buddha. ST, can we approach the message button on the Facebook page for questions that come after this, that come later after the session? Please do send through questions on our Facebook, on our Instagram. I'm not sure if any of the participants, any of the panelists here are open to you maybe adding them on LinkedIn, following them, asking some questions. If anyone has a Teachers Can, maybe on their LinkedIn, maybe just like connect with them as well, and you can ask questions there. So please do. Are there any other questions from our audience members, from people that are interested in applying? Questions? No questions. Okay, no questions. And again, in the interest of time, considering that we'd started later, we promised that we'd start at 4 and end at 4:30. We are outside of the 4:30 mark. So we really want to take the last 5 minutes and just close it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Buddha. I'm glad it was an informative session. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this session. Want to wish you all the best in your applications. There was a presentation that we prepared for this info session, and I'll try to see if we can put it up on our social media as well, because I think it just summarizes a little bit of what it is that was shared here, but gives you again a broader overview of Teachers Can. But again, I think if you've attended this, you now sort of like have a glimpse into what this is about and what you can expect for your journey next year. That is that. I want to then give over to our panelists because I don't want to hog the mic. Panelists, parting words, last words before we just call it an evening and a day. One idea of a parting word, if any. Zay, Kabelo, and then Jay, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, just one thing I want to say when you reach the second round of interviews, when you actually have your Zoom interview, sort of visualize yourself as a Teachers Can Fellow already. I think if you visualize that, you know, the law of attraction is amazing. So speak of yourself as a 2024 Teachers Can Fellow, and let's see what that brings. Be intentional about it. Be mindful about what you put in and what you are going to give, and also be mindful about what you're going to get. Stay open-minded and just be ready to be inspired. Your brain is going to become a sponge, so be ready for that.
Thank you. If you can see it, you can be it. Kabelo.
Sure. Yeah, Zay, thank you so much. If you can dream it, then you can definitely achieve it. What I just want to say to all these people who are interested to apply for the 2024 fellowship program is be bold and take up the space. Be in charge of the words that are going to be typed into that application, and make sure that you take ownership of those words. Otherwise, you are already part of the fellowship program. If you can see it, then definitely you are in it.
You can be it. Thank you. And your words are your power. Thank you for landing that for me, Kabelo. Your words are your power. Jay, parting words from you.
Sure. I just want to emphasize a couple of things. So you heard about all of the incredible value that our alumni has gotten out of this experience, and a lot of it is very, very personal. But I want to emphasize the fact that yes, it is a personal journey, but it is a personal journey that also has impact outside of the self. So people join because they want to make a difference, not just in their own lives, in the lives of the kids in their classrooms, but also in their schools and in the sector. And so that's really, really important. So when you are thinking about applying, understand that it's that full spectrum. You're not just coming in for yourself, but you're also coming in for the people in your school, in your class, in your community that you are representing. And that when you go back, you also go back with them and for them as well. So that's really important. The other thing that's really important to remember is that we are now on our 4th cohort of Teachers Can Fellows. I cannot even believe that I'm saying that. So we are recruiting for our 4th cohort. The stage that we are entering into as an organization is one of scaling the work and really making sure that yes, this fellowship is strong and what people get out of the fellowship is very clear, etc., but also understanding that we are part of a wider network. So the people who join us and the people that continue to stay connected to Teachers Can, whether you are doing it through the fellowship or through anything else, are people who are also committed to building the Teachers Can network. So this message doesn't just stay in the room of 25, but that it spreads far and wide. So when you are thinking about applying, also apply with the idea that you are committing to building this network and making sure that we all are working together to make sure that that this profession grows and that people are starting to value this profession as they should, and placing it where it should in the larger scheme of things. Our vision as an organization is that teachers will be seen as valued participants and influencers in the education ecosystem. So it's here, but it's also here. And we need people who see both that personal vision, but they also see the bigger vision, and they want to be part of that bigger vision as well. So all of the very, very best for your applications. I look forward to reading it, and I look forward to meeting you in the process. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks, Zama.
Thank you for sharing, Jay. As you were speaking, Jay, I thought of Maya Angelou's popular, I mean, lots of words by Maya Angelou are loved, but really words that I love, I come as one, but I stand as one, but come as 10,000. And really, that's what you're getting to do. You're getting to represent your community in wonderful and amazing ways, but also you're getting to take these other 25 teachers and take them back into your community. And even just that stressing of us being a network. So in many ways, you're actually not even taking 25. You're going to get to take away, we're probably going to be at 100 fellows next year, but also we have the multiplier program where we have about 100 other teachers there, and you get to move with these teachers and their perspectives and really enlighten your community in light of that. And again, please, if you're thinking of joining, be someone who's really committed to driving and building this network. We often as a team struggle with, are we teachers can? Are we do we just say we're the team? Do we just say we're the faculty? Because in many ways, you are not teachers can. Teachers can are the 4 great panelists that we had on here who shared on what it is, because they are the network. The network is the teachers. So if you want to be driving this network, please consider applying. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. This session was really insightful. I think also from our comments, people have found it to be quite informative. Thank you for your generosity and sharing in really enlightening ways for us as people who've joined and are interested looking in. Please then also be on the lookout on our social media, because we will be communicating timelines there. When we start, when applications close, we'll communicate that. When we're reviewing, we'll be reviewing in January, just to give you a bit of a heads up because you're here. We'll be reviewing applications in January. At the start of February, we're interviewing, and by mid-February, latest by perhaps the 3rd week of February, all outcomes are sent to all applicants. You know whether you've been accepted into this fellowship program or not. We onboard you in March, and then, like we've said, in the public school holidays, we then are meeting for the immersions. So that's just briefly on the timelines. And again, in looking out on social media, we have a couple of other programs for teachers, particularly the Multiply program, which we'll start sharing a little bit more on our social media. So perhaps if you're not eligible for this one, because we do cap it at the 2 to 5 years of teaching experience, perhaps you don't qualify and aren't eligible for this one, but there could be other programs within this network that might be fitting and suitable for you in that regard. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I see someone has said, I have my email. Okay, we will try share this. We will try share this. Thank you again so much, everyone, for joining. Please feel free, go enjoy your evening. Engage with us on our social media. If you have questions, I will stay on the call for like 5 minutes and just address any of those things. And Ronewa, I will be getting your email in this 5 minutes as I just let people hop off. And let me stop recording, actually. Thank you, and bye, everyone. Looking forward to seeing some of these names on the other side of screens when we're reading applications. No pressure, but lots of pressure. You have to apply.
Good luck, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Zay. All the best.
All the best.
Thank you.